Think about the hardest working person you know. Maybe it's a parent who worked two jobs their whole life. Maybe it's a colleague who's first in the office and last to leave. Maybe, if you're being honest, it's you. Now ask yourself this: are they wealthy? Because statistically, probably not. And that's the uncomfortable truth no one puts on a motivational poster. We've been sold a story, a very clean, very appealing story, that hard work leads to wealth. That if you just grind long enough, sacrifice enough, push hard enough, the money will come. But look around. The world is full of exhausted people who have nothing to show for it. And it's full of people who work a fraction of the hours and keep getting richer. Something is broken in that story. And in this video, we are going to explore exactly what it is, why working harder can actually be the very thing keeping you poor, what the wealthy understand about effort and money that most people never learn, and what you can do right now to start changing the equation. Part 1. The trap has a name, and it's called the labor illusion. There's a concept in behavioral economics called the labor illusion. It was studied by researchers at Harvard Business School, and what they found is both fascinating and a little disturbing. People assign more value to things when they can see effort being expended. We feel that something is worth more if someone visibly struggled to produce it. A hand-stitched leather bag feels more valuable than one stitched by a machine, even if they're identical. A consultant who stays late feels more competent than one who solves your problem in 10 minutes and goes home. We've internalized this so deeply that we've applied it to ourselves. We believe that suffering, that exhaustion, that 70-hour work week, that burning sensation in your chest at midnight, is proof of our worth, proof that we deserve to be paid. But the market doesn't care how hard you worked. The market pays for value delivered. That's it. A plumber who fixes a leak in 20 minutes doesn't earn less because it was fast. He earns what the solution is worth. The hour doesn't matter. The result does. Most people have spent their entire lives optimizing for the wrong variable. They optimized for effort. The wealthy optimize for leverage. Part 2. The equation no one taught you. There are two ways to make money. Two fundamentally different equations. And which one you're running determines almost everything about your financial life. Equation 1. Time for money. You trade hours for dollars. You stop working, the money stops. This is how most people operate. Salaries, hourly wages, freelance work billed by the hour. There's nothing wrong with this, except for one catastrophic flaw. Your time is finite. There are only 24 hours in a day. You cannot scale time. You cannot clone yourself. The ceiling is fixed, and it's lower than you think. Equation 2. Value for money. You create something once, a system, a product, a piece of software, a brand, an investment, and it keeps generating returns without requiring more of your hours. Your output becomes decoupled from your presence. This is what economists call leverage. And it's the single biggest dividing line between people who build wealth and people who chase it their whole lives. Think about the author who writes a book once and collects royalties for decades, or the developer who builds an app on a weekend and earns from it for years, or even the investor who reads for 4 hours a day and lets compound interest do the heavy lifting. These people aren't working harder. They're working inside a different equation entirely. The tragedy is that most schools never taught you this. You were taught to study hard, get good grades, get a good job, which is just equation 1, dressed up with a diploma. Part 3. The psychology of the busy trap. Here's something that might sting a little. For a lot of people, being busy isn't a symptom of ambition. It's a form of avoidance. When you're perpetually exhausted, when your calendar is packed, when you're always doing something, you never have to sit with the harder question, is what I'm doing actually working? Is this path going anywhere? Busyness is comfortable. It feels like progress. It looks like virtue. Your family sees you sacrifice, your colleagues see you grind, and the approval feels good. But motion and direction are not the same thing. Psychologist Adam Grant at Wharton calls this productivity theater, the performance of working without the substance of producing anything that compounds. You're running hard on a treadmill and calling it a marathon. The wealthy, on the other hand, are almost suspicious of busyness. Warren Buffett famously keeps his calendar nearly empty, not because he's lazy, but because he understands that his most valuable output is thinking, clear thinking, strategic thinking, and that requires time that isn't spoken for. Naval Ravikant, the entrepreneur and investor, puts it even more bluntly. He says, "You should be too busy to have coffee with someone, unless you want to have coffee with them." His point is that the relentless overscheduling of your life is a sign that you haven't yet figured out how to be valuable in a way that doesn't require constant presence. Protect your thinking time. It is more expensive than your working time. Part 4. What hard work actually built, and where it stops working. Now, let's be fair. Hard work is not the enemy. The story is more nuanced than that. Hard work in the early stages of building something is absolutely essential. You cannot shortcut the learning curve. You cannot outsource the years you need to develop your craft, build your reputation, understand your market. That foundation has to be laid manually, and it has to be laid by you. There is no way around this. The problem is that most people never graduate from that phase. They stay in sprint mode permanently. They keep adding hours when they should be adding systems. They keep solving problems manually when they should be building processes that solve those problems automatically. They stay the bottleneck in their own operation. Indispensable, yes, but also trapped. There's a concept in business called the E-myth, coined by Michael Gerber. He observed that most small business owners don't actually own a business. They own a job, a very demanding 80-hour-a-week job they can never take a vacation from, because the moment they step away, the whole thing collapses. They never built a system. They built a dependency on themselves. The transition from working hard to building wealth requires a fundamental shift in what you spend your hours doing. Less doing, more designing, less executing, more architecting. You stop being the player and start building the field. Part 5. The 3 leverages the wealthy use. So what does building leverage actually look like in practice? It comes down to 3 things. The first is human leverage, other people's time. You cannot scale yourself, but you can scale a team. Every successful enterprise, at some point, required the founder to stop doing everything themselves and start multiplying their output through other people. Delegation isn't laziness, it's mathematics. The second is capital leverage, other people's money. This is what investing is. You deploy money to generate more money. The money works while you sleep. Compound interest, which Einstein reportedly called the 8th wonder of the world, is just capital leverage operating over time. The reason the wealthy keep getting wealthier isn't some sinister conspiracy. It's that they've learned to put their capital to work instead of just their bodies. The third is media and distribution leverage. The internet has made this one available to everyone, which is historic. A single video, a single newsletter, a single post can reach 1 million people. One person, one message, 1 million points of contact. This is leverage that kings and industrialists of previous centuries could not have imagined. And it's sitting there, largely untapped, on your phone. You don't need all 3. You need one. And you need to pursue it with the same intensity you've been pouring into pure, leverageless effort. Part 6. The identity problem. This is the part most people skip. And it's arguably the most important. There's a reason working harder feels right even when it isn't working, and it goes deeper than habit. For many people, especially those who grew up watching parents grind or who were raised in cultures that deify hard work, busyness is identity. It's how you define your value as a person. "I work hard" is not just a description, it's a self-concept, it's armor. And this is where the psychology gets uncomfortable. Because if you accept that working harder isn't the answer, if you accept that the path forward is thinking differently, building systems, taking risks on leverage, then you have to let go of the identity that kept you safe. The identity of the hard worker, the grinder, the one who outworks everyone. That's terrifying. Not because the strategy is wrong, but because the ego is invested. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on growth versus fixed mindsets applies here in an unexpected way. The fixed mindset around work says, effort equals worth. Effort is the thing. If I'm not exhausting myself, I'm not trying hard enough. The growth mindset says, outcomes matter. What am I building? What is compounding? Effort is a tool, not a virtue. Shifting this at the identity level, not just the strategy level, is what separates people who understand this intellectually from people who actually change their financial trajectory. You have to stop being proud of being busy, full stop. So here's where we land. Hard work got you here. It really did. The discipline, the sacrifice, the late nights. Those things built the foundation. They built your skills, your reputation, your resilience. None of that was wasted. But at some point, and you'll know when you're there, adding more hours stops adding more results. The ladder you're climbing is leaning against the right wall, but you're standing at the bottom of it, doing push-ups. The question you need to ask yourself isn't, how can I work harder? The question is, where is the leverage? What can I build once that generates value beyond my presence? What can I systematize? What can I invest in? What can I create that works while I rest? The wealthiest people in the world aren't the ones who worked the most hours. They're the ones who understood, at some point, that their time and their output could be separated. And then they built accordingly. You can do the same, not by working less, but by working on the right things. Work hard to build leverage. Then, let the leverage do the work. If you grew up watching someone you love work themselves to the bone and still struggle, this video was for them too. Share it. And if you want more of this kind of thinking, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from. This has been The Mind Recast.